What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson, joined for another enthralling off-season episode by John Breech and Tyler Sullivan. What's up, boys?
What's going on?
Brinson, I missed you. We haven't talked to you so long.
Missed it.
We talked on Monday.
We did? Really?
Didn't
What?
we just recently do an episode?
Yeah. I might just take the whole month of June off, honestly.
Well, some of us are on this podcast. Just unfortunately,
Are
not
you? Are you? Are you off?
I got a big thing coming up.
I'm gonna be like Will Smith at the end of Fresh Prince.
What thing are you? No, I mean, I'm not. You've got a
Yeah.
Well, it's not a big thing. I mean, it's a big thing, but it's not a big thing. Yeah.
It's a 9-pound, 1 ounce thing.
Yeah, that's right. I guess that's pretty big. Anyway, yeah, that's exciting for you. I would actually think I would take I don't have any paternity leave upcoming. But if I were going to take paternity leave, would you get like 6 months now or something ridiculous? I think that I would probably
the season starts. That's all.
I'm saying that I would like work June and then like take my paternity leave in July and August, and then just be like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna work June. There's not a whole lot going on as long as Aaron Hernandez doesn't commit any murders or anything like that. He's in the news. I was when I was in the Caymans. Somebody asked me, they're like, do you remember when we used to come here? I was like, yeah, I remember when I was here. I was standing right there on my birthday when Aaron Hernandez got arrested. I just remember seeing the news on my phone. Anyway, I digress to a great length. We're going to talk about quarterbacks and quarterback power rankings because Cody Benjamin, our colleague, friend of the podcast, great guy, put out his quarterback power rankings, and boy, oh boy, is he inviting his mentions to be absolutely obliterated. Whenever I post any sort of ranking, I don't know about you guys, whenever I post any sort of ranking on the site, social takes it and turns it into a graphic. There is no context. They post it on Instagram. People start screenshotting it, and they tweet at you. Kyler Murray tweets at you. You're in the New York Post, yada, yada, yada. It all happens so fast. Cody Benjamin probably going to get dragged for this. Won't get killed for the number one pick because it's Patrick Mahomes, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl champion, back-to-back champion currently, multiple-time MVP winner, multiple-time Super Bowl MVP winner. No problem with Patrick Mahomes at 1. However, fellas, at number 2, he has the runner-up from the Super Bowl, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. Let's read it out, I guess. Let's give the kid the respect he deserves. 2 seasons, 2 NFC title games, 1 valiant Super Bowl effort. Does he have a sterling setup in San Francisco? Yep. Does he operate like a 10-year vet, managing the pocket as both an efficient and mobile gunslinger? Also, yep. No caveat whatsoever here, Sully. He's just going right in with, let's give Brock Purdy the respect he deserves for winning on a really great team. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad a pick is this?
It's up there, and I love Cody. He's one of the hardest working guys that we have. It's not against him. And honestly, he's doing his job. Like, this is going to get a ton of clicks. Like, this is exactly, the off-season type of page view thing that absolutely works in this business. But to put Purdy up against, the rest of the league outside of Patrick Mahomes is tough, because if we just go down the list and you say, okay, you're starting your franchise, you can have Brock Purdy or CJ Stroud. I'm taking Stroud. Do you want Brock Purdy or Lamar Jackson? I'm taking Lamar Jackson. You go down the list, and there's a handful at least of quarterbacks that I am taking over Brock Purdy, absent of the situation that he's in San Francisco. So is he number 2? No. Is he number 10? Maybe. That's kind of where I'm at here. So if I think this guy's a fringe top 10 quarterback in the league and he's ranked at 2, how bad is it? Well, it's probably a 9 or a 10.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting ranking. And I will say, look, I actually agree with a lot of what Cody has ranked here. He had to rank 32 quarterbacks. I think I agree with probably 90% of it. But this one is just egregious. And it's not even people disagreeing with it. People will read this and maybe even say, you know what, I'm not going to read this guy's writing anymore if he thinks Brock Purdy is the second best quarterback in the NFL right now. And I think Tyler kind of hit the nail on the head, because when you look at these quarterback rankings, there's different ways to do it. And I think the easiest way to do it is if you were starting a franchise tomorrow and you have to pick a quarterback, Patrick Mahomes is going number 1 to whoever has that pick. Brock Purdy is not going number 2. And then also, if you're close on quarterbacks, if you have 2 guys, and let's say you have Josh Allen at number 3, which is the case here, Brock Purdy at number 2, say you just can't decide who should be at 2, who should be at 3, you say, all right, what happens if you put Brock Purdy on the Bills? Are they going to be as good with Brock Purdy as they were with Josh Allen? The answer is no, they are not going to be. If you ask Kyle Shanahan who he would rather have at quarterback, Josh Allen or Brock Purdy, he's taking Josh Allen. So I don't see any way you can really put Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy should be in the top 10, but number 2 is just way too high.
Yeah, here's the thing is, and you made exactly the same point I wanted to make, Breech, and I'll ask you, Sully, is there a criteria you can build in which you, in other words, like sort of working backwards to try and build a criteria where you start and say, I'm going to have Brock Purdy as my number 2 quarterback. And I think the only one is if it's who was left standing in the playoffs last year, because you can't, because Cody, you read the rankings and he says at the top, he says, which ones are the best of the best as we stand here today approaching the new year? And which ones could be for trouble? All quarterbacks are partly a product of their situations, but this is how we sort today's simple colors bold right now. These power rankings are obviously subject to drastic change once games actually get underway, as they're built to be based more on current standing than the bigger picture, in an effort to tell the story of each quarterback's respective rise and fall. So there's nothing about his description here, Sully, that indicates, he's working backwards from, okay, Brock, because I don't think Brock Purdy finished number 2 in the MVP rankings, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different. There's not really any way outside of he was the next to last quarterback to lose, or he was the last quarterback to lose, because Mahomes actually didn't lose in the playoffs. That's the only way you can get there with Brock Purdy, because Breech's point is absolutely spot on. If Kyle Shanahan is, I don't think you need to give him truth serum. I think he would just trade Brock Purdy for C.J. Stroud. I think every coach would do that.
Well, I mean, just go back to like last year. Was it last year, right, where they had Sam Darnold, and there was like a weird flirtation of whether or not he would play at some point. So, like, that's neither here nor there.
Well, to that point, real quick, Solly, to that point, the 49ers, and this was after Brock Purdy had the elbow injury and they brought in quarterbacks, they were calling Tom Brady, and they were saying, hey, look, do you want to come here and start? And look, I know 49ers fans will say, well, that was just insurance in case Purdy's elbow didn't heal. Well, guess what? It's not like they were going to send Tom Brady to the bench if Purdy's elbow did heal. It was Shanahan was so much looking for their quarterback that he was willing to put Purdy on the bench for an entire year if Brady was willing to play. So, like, that tells you how Shanahan feels and what he thinks of the guy running his offense.
And I'll say this, just in defense of Cody, to try to make the case for Brock Purdy to be number 2. I don't believe it, but let's just play it out here. Like you're saying, Brinson, how do we get Brock Purdy to be the number 2 quarterback in the league? Well, what do you want these quarterbacks to do? If you're Chicago, what do you want Caleb Williams to do? Do you want him to put up a bunch of stats, or do you want him to lead you to deep playoff runs? Patrick Mahomes is sensational, but the reason why we call him great and possibly the greatest of all time is because he's winning Super Bowls and getting them deep into the playoffs almost on a regular basis. Brock Purdy, if he remained healthy in that NFC Championship game, there's a real possibility that this dude's 2 for 2 going to the Super Bowl. So if we're going under the construct of, can you win me football games, not just during the regular season, but in the postseason, and get me to a chance to win the Super Bowl? Brock Purdy has done that. So is it prolific like Josh Allen? Is it prolific like CJ Stroud? No, I think those guys are more talented. But if we're talking about a knack for winning, Brock Purdy really hasn't shown us that he can't take them all the way. I mean, yes, he hasn't hoisted the Lombardi trophy, but he's put them in a far better position than, say, Jimmy Garoppolo, or when they swung for the fences, of course, Trey Lance a few years ago.
Well, and to that point, real quick, and look, because you could say the same thing about Jimmy Garoppolo. If Jaquiski Tartt doesn't drop that interception in the NFC title game in, 2021, then Garoppolo's been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years with the 49ers, and I don't think anyone was calling Garoppolo the number 2 quarterback. But Tyler, I do get your point, just that, like, he's running the system perfectly, and what more can you ask?
Well, and just really quickly, I want to look up to see if we have. I don't know if these are even up yet, but if they are, I'd be curious to know. What are the MVP odds for 2020? Like, would you suggest that? I think Brock Purdy he's definitely a top 10 candidate. So for MVP, here are the odds at DraftKings Sportsbook. Patrick Mahomes 6-1, Josh Allen 8-1, Joe Burrow 9-1, CJ Stroud 9-1, Lamar Jackson 10-1, Jordan Love 12-1. That is expensive, and then Brock Purdy at 12-1 as well. So, I mean, I think you can easily make the case that Brock Purdy's a top 10 quarterback, but number 2 is a stretch. Cody went with it anyway, and we will certainly see if Purdy can hold up that lofty number. Let's take a break. When we come back, quarterbacks 3 through 10 next.
From the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, is there anyone stronger?
No.
Tougher?
No.
Hungrier?
Grapes was an interesting choice for someone who doesn't use fingers.
Knuckles, now streaming only on Paramount Plus.
For those watching on YouTube, you just saw the Knuckles commercial. We talked about that previously. Did you see the numbers that Knuckles did over the weekend, debut weekend, Sully? I know we talked about it.
Oh, I didn't see it.
It was like 40. It was like 4 million, maybe it was 41 million hours streamed or something. It's something insane. It's the most streamed show ever on Paramount Plus, I believe. I was texting with my son about it, and Robbie's a huge Sonic guy, loves Knuckles, and he was like, how many days is that? Looks at it, it's like 19,000 days or something. It's something ridiculous. How much buzz it got. Speaking of buzz, Cody Benjamin's top quarterback rankings list getting plenty of buzz out there. Brock Purdy at number 2, as we just talked about, just an insane ranking. 3 through 10, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love. Is this the correct order? Is this the correct grouping? It feels like if we just slide Brock Purdy down like 5 or 6 spots, he kind of nailed the top 10, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the only one that I have a huge gripe with is Dak. I'd probably flip him and Justin Herbert. I'm just not a huge Dak guy, and that's just is what it is. But because I just think that he's kind of similar to Brock Purdy, a product of his situation. He has a ton of great weapons, an offense that likes to open it up, but hasn't really elevated in terms of winning football. So for me, I'd probably flip him and Justin Herbert, even though I could make, if you're talking playoffs, you could throw those critiques right at Justin Herbert. I just like his talent level a little bit more. Sure. But to me, the interesting one is CJ Stroud, already coming into year 2, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. How do we feel about that?
I'm fine with that. I mean, we saw how he played as a rookie. You don't see rookies just take over the NFL like Stroud did. I mean, it doesn't happen that often where they have that much success during their rookie year.
It doesn't happen at all. I mean,
it's rare. I mean, you just don't see rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs very often. Obviously, we saw it with Dak, a name you just mentioned. We saw it with Russell Wilson, RG3. It's happened, but not where you had a team that was as bad as the Texans were the year before and then turn around and make the playoffs. So I think the funny thing is I actually very much agree with what Tyron just said, that like, if you drop Brock Purdy down to that 6, 7, 8 range and just throw Dak out of the top 10, because like I said, I agree with almost everything Cody has here. I thought he did a fantastic job, and Purdy's really the only big question mark. And I think that would be a fantastic top 10. I think clearly Sully and I feel the same way about Dak, that he hasn't, like Purdy's proven to be more efficient. He's comes up bigger and bigger games, and we haven't seen that from Dak Prescott, but we have seen it from Purdy. So, and I'm completely fine putting Stroud at 5, maybe put him behind Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and knock him down to 7. But I think he's absolutely should be in the top 10. And I think you can make a strong argument that should be in the top 7. And Cody made an argument to be the top 5, which I don't think is crazy.
I think you could also make the case, and I got yelled at a lot for Dak last year because I had him in the, we sort of know what his floor, what his ceiling is, and then he came out and played, really well and had a great season. Was an MVP candidate, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that I would probably push Jordan Love out of the top 10. I think you have a guy, Dak Prescott, who has played at a high level since he's been a rookie. And you have Jordan Love, who has played at a high level for like half a season. And to me, I guess because I don't feel like Cody's – again, it depends on the criteria and how you want to do it. I don't feel like Cody is attempting to project the season forward, right? He's saying this is a snapshot of where these guys are right now. And while you would probably rather have, like, you would take Jordan Love over Dak Prescott moving forward. I think if you needed to win one game or needed to win in 2024, I think you'd probably prefer Dak to Jordan Love if all of the things were created equal, just because of the floor. Love has a higher ceiling. He is a lot unknown. We don't know what he could be. But, dude, halfway through last year, Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, who traded up and drafted Jordan Love while Aaron Rodgers was still on the roster, was asked, is Jordan Love your guy? And he's like, I don't know. We're going to have to figure it out this year. He's like, they didn't know. Packers fans didn't know, like, until that great stretch to finish the season, make the playoffs, and then beat the Cowboys and Dak, fair enough, in the playoffs head to head. Like, he was not the guy a quarter of the way through the season or even halfway through the season. So I think for me, you need to see a little bit. I think Jordan Love's going to be great. But the fact that he is 12-1 to win MVP is pretty freaking wild. It would be the wildest thing on the board if CJ Stroud wasn't 9-1 to win MVP.
Yeah, I see. I like Jordan Love. Like, I think what we saw towards the tail end of last season, which, you know, he was completing like 70% of his passes. I think it was like 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was playing at an MVP level. But if you're talking like, you know, 12-1, no. If he's like 25-1, I actually absolutely smash that. I'm at least checking that out. But I still think I would take him, and I'm not just talking about going forward, because that's a given the age and the relative ceiling. But I still think I would take him to win me a game, and like, just give me the win me week one. For 2024, I think I'm taking Jordan Love over Dak. I really am. I love the way he played down the stretch last season. I mean, he almost beat the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
Except he threw an ugly interception.
I didn't want to mention that, Breech.
Sorry.
I didn't want to mention that.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy though, and if Brock Purdy wasn't number 2, I think more people might be talking about the fact that not only is Jordan Love in the top 10, but guess who he's ahead of? One spot,
Aaron Rodgers.
And so I could see some Jets fans where, I mean, that's just, I love that ranking, because that's juicy, saying, hey, look, the Packers said, we're done with you, Aaron. I'm going to keep Jordan Love. And now you could argue that Jordan Love going into 2024, that maybe you'd rather have him than Aaron Rodgers, because, and this kind of alludes to Joe Burrow too, where if somebody has Joe Burrow down their rankings, he's 4 here. I don't think you can argue that if he's down to 5 or 6, just because if you are picking a quarterback for 2024, you want a guy that has a history of staying healthy. And obviously Aaron Rodgers coming off Achilles, not great. And Joe Burrow has had 2 seasons where he's missed at least 6 games. And that's a little worrisome. So you do have to worry about that wrist injury. So I think that, you know, from a talent standpoint, if this was just pure talent, I would rank Burrow 2nd overall, but this is he going to be available? Is he going to look like he did? Because he's coming off a wrist or an injury to his throwing wrist. And that's, no quarterback has ever had to come back from that. So we don't know what he's going to look like. So I'm fine with Burrow being given a spot in the top 5. Cody has him at 4, and I'm fine with Jordan Love being ahead of Aaron Rodgers, which I'm sure Ryan Wilson loves, because wasn't that his bold prediction for the entire 2023 season?
Yeah, he said Love would have a better season than Rodgers. I think this is. I think you'd also say that it was true. Yeah. What's that, Sully?
I said it was true by default, but
it was true 5 minutes into the season.
Right. But it ended up being, you know, actually accurate. I think that it would do Cody a little. I would say, 1, I'm surprised where he put Jalen Hurts, and 2, how about you put some respect on Lamar Jackson's name? The guy just won his 2nd MVP, and he's your 6th ranked quarterback. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, I get Josh Allen to me, Josh Allen should. I actually think if you take a snapshot of it right now, you put the MVP at number 2 behind Mahomes.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, the Ravens weren't very good against the Chiefs offensively. I get it. It was a close, great game, incredible, incredible matchup there. I think Allen would be my 3. I would probably reward CJ Stroud's season and put him at 4, because he really was that good, and he was. I mean, he wins a playoff game as a rookie. He's in the mix for MVP down the stretch. I think I would probably go Burrow at 5, man, it's kind of. I think Burrow at 5, then Hurts at 6 would be what I would do. And look, I love Burrow. I said you could make the case that you take Burrow as the out of everybody like 2 years ago, which we don't need to dig up that audio clip. The injury, I think Burrow said when he was at practice yesterday or this week, Breech, I think the same thing that you'd said on the podcast on Monday, which is that he couldn't find any quarterbacks like other NFL quarterbacks or other quarterbacks anywhere who had dealt with this. He had to didn't he have to go talk to linebackers and running backs and all these different positional guys or defensive guys in order to figure out how do you rehab from this particular wrist injury. That's concerning.
Yeah, and those guys don't have to throw the football, so it's obviously a huge difference. And he's not, he can learn how you rehab, but he can't learn what the impact's going to be on his ability to throw the football because those guys don't really know. And when he was talking to the media, I think on Tuesday, he said, "Hey, look, it still hurts a little bit, and there is some pain there, and that's consistent. I'm working on consistency. So it's good if you're a Bengals fan, you see him out there throwing the football." But there has to be a little inkling of concern to hear him saying that. It's good that he's admitting it. Clearly, he's comfortable admitting it. But you don't want to hear that your quarterback's hurting a little when he's throwing the football.
I did find it surprising, too, real quick with Joe Burrow, because he said yesterday that he just started throwing like a month ago or less than a month ago. I'm surprised it took as long as it did. But again, I think that just suggests how kind of weird this injury specifically for a quarterback is.
Well, I will say real quick, he did say in January that he usually, once the season's over, doesn't throw for a month under any circumstance. So he wouldn't have been throwing till March 1st if he wasn't injured. So he only missed 3 or 4 weeks of throwing that he usually wouldn't have missed.
Yeah, still look, Burrow needs to start the season healthy. Bottom line,
yeah.
The one guy I think that can be considered pretty controversial at number 9, Justin Herbert. I'll be curious to see how So my expectation is that the Chargers win this year and win without Herbert chunking the ball around. I think the defense will be better. I think they'll run the ball more. I think it'll be more efficient. You saw Andrew Luck at Stanford with Jim Harbaugh average 27 pass attempts a game. That's not very many for modern football. Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick ran these different style systems under Greg Roman, who then went on to become Lamar Jackson's quarterback or offensive coordinator, and they ran, of course, the read option stuff. I don't think they're going to do that much of it with Herbert, but he's a very gifted runner. It wouldn't surprise me. And when you look at the weapons, they add Ladd McConkey. They bring in Will Dissly at tight end. We talked about Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer. I think that it's going to be run the football, let Justin Herbert convert these third downs, and then take some deep shots. And I wonder if the Chargers are winning, and I think that they're going to win because I just believe in Jim Harbaugh, and I think Jim Harbaugh just wins football games, and he's a great coach. I think he's a huge upgrade as a coach. If they're winning games and Justin Herbert isn't putting up monster stats, but he's being very efficient and playing the position well, where do you think he'll slot out? Because he's always been the guy where preseason he's 4th, and then at the end of the season he's 10th because either he's hurt in the case of the past year or the Chargers just don't win enough football games.
Yeah, I think he's the quarterback that has of this top 10 that has the biggest variance. He can go, talent wise, he could go as high as 2. It wouldn't, it's that he's that gifted.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like there's a chance where he falls out of the top 10 as well. So when you're talking about him being with Harbaugh now, I think that there's an opportunity for him to knock on the door for top 5. Talent wise, like I said, he has it. And yes, it might not be as flashy of numbers and it might not be as prolific as some other quarterback seasons. But if you're looking at making timely throws and really just being A+ game manager and super efficient, I think that he obviously has the skills to do that, and that will contribute to them winning games, and that might have him knocking at the door top 5.
Yeah, and the thing about Justin Herbert, like you said with the talent, is that if you took the greatest offensive minds in football right now, you take Andy Reid or Kyle Shanahan, and you say you could have one quarterback on your team and it can't be Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert is going to be one of their top 3 options. I mean, just because he's so talented, just because
it's Allen, Burrow, and Herbert, right? I mean, isn't that the next 3?
Stroud.
I mean, it's going to be. Yeah. So the thing is, there's just been so many times though where we've seen him not come up clutch in these games where the Chargers needed him, but it almost feels like they've had to rely on him too much. Like it's almost unfair what's been asked of him. There are some quarterbacks. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes deals with that all the time, and that's why he's the best quarterback in the NFL, number one on this list. And Herbert sometimes responds well, sometimes doesn't. But taking a little bit off his plate and making him more of a game manager, I think, is going to help, even though we trash the game manager label. And I absolutely agree with you guys. I think with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, Herbert could have a huge season, even if his numbers aren't as big as they have been for like the last 2 years.
Well, I think that we should just really quickly point to, yeah, okay, fine, we could throw game manager out there, but I don't even know if that's necessarily it. I think it's the coaching staff putting Herbert in a position to succeed. I think Harbaugh is going to do that. There's been multiple times during the Staley era where he was not put in a position on the field to succeed, going forward in these weird fourth down situations and going for two. It just never put his team and Herbert in the position to win or really thrive. I don't think Harbaugh is going to put him in that spot.
Herbert is I like Herbal. That's I was just looking. I just brought up Justin Herbert's page on Pro Football Reference. He's 30-32 as a quarterback, and I understand that the quarterback wins should not be a stat. I agree with that. But this is a guy who won Offensive Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. He was 9th in the MVP voting. He's been to a Pro Bowl. They went 6-9, 9-8, 10-7, and they went 5-8 last year. I do think that a little bit less on his plate. I mean, you're talking about 4,300 yards as a rookie, 31 touchdowns, 5,000 yards in the second year, 38 touchdowns, 4,700 yards and 25 touchdowns following that. And then, was on pace for big numbers last year. I think that just the way that we do these, and it's funny how it cuts both ways. If you have a monster statistical season, people will boost you up, but then people will say, like Emory Hunt calls him Beachbody Stafford on this. It's like, well, I mean, now Matthew Stafford wins. So what do you say there? I think Jim Harbaugh is going to help Justin Herbert win, and I think that's going to push him up this list as a result, even though his numbers may not be – like we're going to be like, all right, his completion percentage is up, his yards per attempt is up, his touchdowns are up, and his yards are down is what I expect. 6.9 yards per attempt or 6.8, 6.9 the last 2 years, that's not great for an elite quarterback by any stretch. You need to be over 7. And pushing 8 if you want to be an elite quarterback. I think we get that from him in this offense. I just want to kind of peek at Alex Smith and see what he did when he was with Harbaugh very quickly. This is a guy who averaged 8 yards per attempt in 2012 with the 49ers. That was a team that went 6-2-1 and got replaced by Kaepernick. 13-3. A career high 7.3 yards per attempt that season. His interception numbers led the league 1.1%, only 5 picks each of those 2 years. Completion percentage in the 70%, even the year he was replaced. I mean, it's wild to think that Harbaugh replaced him with Kaepernick because he was playing really good football. I think we get an efficient season out of Justin Herbert, and he's in the top 5. I agree with you, Sonny. I think of all the guys in this outside of the top 5, in the top 10, the biggest chance to make that jump into that top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, quarterbacks 11 through 16, and then the real dregs of the NFL. We'll talk about the quarterbacks in the bottom 2/3 of this list coming up next.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
Okay, let's dive into quarterbacks 11 through 16. We have the top 10. 11 through 16 quarterbacks in the NFL, according to Cody Benjamin on CBSSports.com. Is it at Cody J. Benjamin if you want to tweet at him and be mad about it? By all means, go tweet at him and yell at him. Aaron Rodgers, 11. Tua Tagovailoa, 12. At 13, Jared Goff. 14, Kirk Cousins, the new quarterback in Atlanta. 15, Trevor Lawrence. And 16, Matthew Stafford. Now, I don't have an issue with this group as the next tier of quarterbacks. I do, however, take pretty significant umbrage with the order in which these guys are grouped. I'm a homer. I love Matthew Stafford. He's my guy. I'm not going to be happy with this. I don't mind it. But I'll be honest. The biggest issue I think I have with it is the fact that Aaron Rodgers, who played 4 snaps last year and is pushing 40, coming off an Achilles injury. He is 40, coming off an Achilles injury, is 11 here. How right now, and Kirk Cousins, same sort of deal. He's 14, so a little bit less. I mean, for me, these guys are 15 and 16 and in their own separate tier because they're old quarterbacks coming off an Achilles injury in the offseason when you haven't seen anything from them. How can you be remotely confident that these guys are going to go out there and perform right now? If you were picking a quarterback to start the 2024 season, these guys should be below Trevor Lawrence, below Jared Goff, below Matthew Stafford, because you really don't know what the hell you're going to get. Their teams are all in on them. The Falcons, I guess the Falcons drafted Michael Penix too, but it is insane to think to me that you would push these guys out there and just blindly assume, Sully, that they're going to be fine with these injuries.
Yeah, it's tough and I'm bullish on the Jets. I think the Jets in 2024 are viable to get out of the AFC. I think that's it, but it all depends.
Super Bowl?
I think it's possible. I think it's certainly possible.
Ooh.
But it all depends on Aaron Rodgers, right? It depends on how he responds from the Achilles and what does we saw him for 4 snaps with the New York Jets. We have no idea what this tenure is going to look like. We only can assume what it's going to be. And assuming and putting him at number 10, knocking on the door at top 10, I just don't love doing out of principle. I would much rather I'd feel much more confident in Tua. I'd feel much more confident in Stafford and Goff, putting them at number 11 because I've seen what they most recently have been able to do and put their teams in positions to succeed. And so I think you're right, Brinson. I think you have to put almost Rodgers and Cousins at 15, 16, clump them together and say, hey, listen, one of these teams just use a number 8 overall pick on a quarterback. So how can I, in good conscience, put them somewhat in the, in deep into the top half of the league? I just don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, I think that it is tough, and I agree with Brinson's take here that you probably put Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers in their own little category. I mean, clearly the Falcons aren't sold on Kirk Cousins because they used the 8th overall pick on a quarterback. Imagine if the Jets had done the same thing. Rodgers would have quit the team on the spot if they used their first-round pick on a quarterback. I mean, it would have been insane. And so, even though they are in similar situations, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't know if Brinson gave me some of his Brinson Cloyd, but I think Stafford's way too low at 16. I would probably put him on the cusp of the top 10, if not at 10th overall. I said that if I would take Dak Prescott out of the top 10, so I think Stafford might be the quarterback I put in there, but down at the bottom, probably at 10th. And yeah, I do feel like Rodgers, Cousins down at 15 and 16 makes sense. Trevor Lawrence is one of those. He is exactly in the middle right now, which is obviously where he is in this rankings. I feel like he's a tough one to rank because he shows flashes of being great and then flashes of what the heck is this guy doing. So I do feel like and Tua and Goff are just those quarterbacks where they're good enough to get you the playoffs and you cross your fingers and maybe hope they can get you further. So yeah, I would say that I'd put Stafford at 10th, but other than that, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, do you know when the last time Aaron Rodgers completed a pass was?
2 years ago?
I mean, Sunday, January 8th, 2023. That's a long time ago, man. The last time he completed a pass in the regular season, and you have to go back to January 2022 to be the last time he completed a pass in the playoffs. It's just a really long time. He's torn his Achilles since then. He's on a new team. They signed Tyron Smith. They signed Morgan Moses. That's great. You improve the offensive line. How healthy are those guys going to be? The whole thing about it's Tua, well protected on script. I don't know I think the Jets would probably if you gave the Jets coaching staff truth serum, are they taking Aaron Rodgers or Tua for 2024?
Ooh.
I don't know that I know the answer right away.
That's a good one.
I think you take Tua but I mean,
I think you're right.
I know you take Stafford. I know you take Stafford over Aaron Rodgers.
I need to see how many cold weather games the Jets have at home in December before I can make that decision.
And Tua did play a full season last year, but health has obviously been an issue for him as well. For sure.
I think Trevor Lawrence is, and Trevor Lawrence, they flame down the stretch. Lawrence, I get why people are sort of out on Lawrence. Ryan Wilson's been out on him since his rookie year, like trying to drag Lawrence like repeatedly. I don't really get it. I would say that out of all these,
proven wrong yet though.
No, but I mean Lawrence had a rough year last year. The offense wasn't very good for him. I think Trevor Lawrence is someone who I would probably, and again, like it depends on your criteria. We're talking like if we're doing right, like where I expect him to be going into the season, I would much rather take Lawrence for 2024 than Rodgers or Cousins, just because Lawrence is at least going to be healthy and you have that upside. So I think for me it would be Stafford at I would have Stafford over Love personally. I think Stafford at 10, Goff at 11, Lawrence at 12, Love at 13, Tua at 14, and then 15 and 16 for me would be Rodgers and Cousins sort of lumped in that injury thing. I mean, you can move Love up a couple spots, but I think Lawrence has played a lot more than Love has. I mean, Lawrence has had stretches that Love had last year, but Stafford won a Super Bowl. Stafford played the stretches Stafford had last year were better than any stretches Jordan Love had. So for me, Stafford should be a top 10 quarterback.
I mean, when Stafford's cooking, he's like top 7, top 5. Like he's that talented and that skilled. I mean, we saw it during that Super Bowl run. I also wouldn't sleep on Jared Goff either. He's coming off a great year, career high in completion percentage, 30 touchdowns, 12
Goff's
picks.
been awesome.
He's been I think he just kind of has a weird, connotation around him that people think that, oh, he stinks and his ceiling's capped, and it might be, but I don't know if we're putting Brock Purdy at 2. I think that Goff can do all those same things and maybe even at a higher level, a more skilled level. So I don't know. I wouldn't have been mad if I saw Goff at 11.
I think the issue with Goff though is that you have the fact that Sean McVay, a noted offensive genius, kind of said, all right, this guy's hit his ceiling. I don't think I can win a Super Bowl with him. I'm trading him away and upgrading in my eyes. So I don't think Sean McVay would agree with Cody's rankings because I think he would have Matthew Stafford ahead of Jared Goff. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to look at Goff, Tyler. I think that he's probably underrated at this point, which seems kind of crazy. Because when this trade went down, it was, oh man, the Lions probably aren't going to be very good. Then he goes 3-10-1 his first year in Detroit. And look, that's a huge change. That's a jolt to your system. You got to learn a new system. You're doing all these new things. And since then, he's bounced back and he's looked great over the past 2 seasons.
I mean, he was like a throw-in. They had to add an extra first-round pick just to absorb his contract at that point.
Correct,
Right?
Correct.
And I know that obviously, the Rams won the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. It's worked out for them tremendously. They get a better and higher ceiling quarterback. They have a Lombardi trophy to show for it. But when they made this trade, people were thinking like, oh boy, you took on Goff. The fact that he's played as well as he has during his tenure is a monumental win for Detroit. And he's exceeded, I think, everybody's expectations since he's gotten there.
You think about the NFL draft in Detroit this year. I mean, when Jared Goff got traded, it was, okay, Jared Goff is the placeholder until Detroit's able to draft a quarterback. This is a great sort of, bridge quarterback. You toss him in there. Lions fans in the middle of the NFL draft, we're just breaking out in Jared Goff chants like over and over and over again. They love this guy, and I think he's earned the right to be beloved in Detroit. He had him they were like pretty close to going to the Super Bowl. I mean, he's been to a Super Bowl. He could have won a Super Bowl with the Rams. I do think his upside is capped a little bit just by he doesn't have the physical. I mean, he has the physical traits. Don't get me wrong, but he can't. I don't know. He's taking over a game like Stafford can just take over a game. But there's probably only 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the NFL who can just take over a game like physically. I mean, and maybe Mahomes, Allen. I think Stafford qualifies just in terms of guys who are so like obviously, you wouldn't count. Like Herbert, I think could qualify there. Jalen Hurts, probably Lamar Jackson, probably CJ Stroud. I think I don't know that Joe Burrow qualifies there as like a guy who can just take over a game physically. You know what I mean? It's no knock on Burrow. He can just get white hot and start like he can take over a game, just not like. Yeah, Burrow counts.
Well, he can deal like Stafford. Like Stafford's not running around like Lamar and taking it over in a dual threat type of way.
I think Burrow can take over a game with his brain and arm combination. Burrow doesn't have Stafford's arm. I mean, nobody has Stafford's arm. Like, Stafford's arm is insane. And,
Go watch his game against the 49ers from back in October and tell me if Burrow can't take over a game.
Here we go. All right, moving along. Now that we've suddenly dragged Breech for no
Burrow can't take over a game.
I love Burrow.
Third thing I've ever heard.
Okay, Burrow. Sorry,
he's been in 2 AFC championships in his 2 full healthy seasons.
I would like to retract that statement. It was stupid. That's incorrect. Burrow can take over a game, obviously. Burrow took over like the playoffs multiple times and like won a national championship with a lot of talent around. But I think that
Breech stood back and was like, I'm not even going to overreact too much. I'm just going to let Brinson sit in that.
I'm going to let him finish his sentence, finish his whole thought. I'm not even going to butt in just yet.
A lot of people do that with me in life. And they're like, no, keep going. Let's see where this ends, idiot. It's really my whole like professional existence. Anyway, the bottom half of the league, 17 through 32, and where Cody's operating under the assumption that so Drake May's not listed. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, and Caleb Williams are. I'll just read through them. Deshaun Watson at 17, Geno Smith at 18, Russell Wilson at 19, Baker Mayfield at 20, Kyler Murray at 21. They have asterisks by their names. What is that? Maybe we're supposed to talk about them. Anyway, Will Levis at 22, Caleb Williams 23, first rookie listed, Anthony Richardson 24, JJ McCarthy 25, Derek Carr 26, Jacoby Brissett, not Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Gardner Minshew, Bo Nix, Bryce Young at 31, and Daniel Jones at 32. Okay, so first things first. Really? Deshaun Watson at 17? Really? What has Deshaun Watson done? I laughed audibly at Russell Wilson at 19. I mean, what the hell is Russell Wilson doing at 19? Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith aren't as sexy, but they means asterisk is former number 1 overall pick. Sorry, Harry. Thank you. Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, the way that they played over the last 2 years, or last year specifically in Baker's case, there's no way you can have them below Russell Wilson, who just got cut for an $85 million cap hit, and Deshaun Watson, who would be cut if the Browns hadn't fully guaranteed his deal.
I 100% agree. It's very similar to the Jared Goff thing with Deshaun Watson. It's just in reverse. I think that people thought that Jared Goff kind of stinks because they traded him and all that, but he's been extremely good in Detroit. I think that people remember the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson, or at least Cody in this sense, remember the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson and are completely ignoring him in Cleveland because he has been god off. He's played in 12 games. He's been awful since he's been there. If they could do a do-over in 2 seconds, they would do it. So the fact that he's 17, I think is that might be the most ridiculous thing. We just talked about Brock Purdy being number 2 overall on this list. The
Texans, everyone's like, the Texans roster is in great shape. It's unbelievable. They are set for the future. It's going to be hard to stop the Texans moving forward. And it's basically and almost entirely because of the Deshaun Watson trade. I realized that they didn't take C.J. Stroud with that pick, but like it's 2 things. 1, the Panthers trading up for Bryce Young, and 2, the Texans trading Deshaun Watson for that insane haul is what reinvigorated this Texans franchise.
Yeah, and another thing, you look at where Baker Mayfield is, I don't know how I could be behind any of them. I mean, you're talking about Tom Brady and the Buccaneers went 8-9 in 2022. Brady's done. They bring in Baker Mayfield. People are thinking, oh, well, the Buccaneers are done. There's no way that Baker Mayfield can be an upgrade over Tom Brady. They did better last year. They went 9-8. They still won the division. And so I think that Baker Mayfield probably makes the most sense at the top of this list. As far as 17 through 32, Kyler Murray, the Cardinals played competitive football down the stretch, especially after Kyler Murray came back. And I really want to see what they can do on the field. I feel like they could be a surprise team. But when I say surprise team, I don't think that counts as making the playoffs. I think that counts as a team that could win 3 or 4 more games than they did last year. So I would probably put Baker and Kyler there at 17 and 18. And then it is just do whatever you want after that. I mean, I don't know where you throw Deshaun Watson because it feels like maybe his talent's still there. Maybe he can be good this year, but we have no idea. I would probably take Derek Carr over someone like Will Levis, and Carr's pretty low down the list, although I don't think he should be in the top 20. So I don't think 26 is horrible, but I'd probably have him at 21 or 22.
I think this is also, and I mean, I'm not like touting my own horn here, but I mean, I think this is why when you rank quarterbacks, you're better off doing them in tiers. And I realize that Cody, the assignment is rank quarterbacks 1 through 32.
Brinson, didn't you create tiers and then get ripped on by everyone on the internet? So that doesn't work either.
No, nothing works. No, yeah, if you rank anything online, I mean, like
it's
you
just
could,
a little bit more organized.
Right. I mean, you could, the tiers just gives you a little wiggle room. Yeah. For instance, like I don't know that I don't see how you can possibly put Bo Nix above Bryce Young, even as bad as Bryce Young was, because Bryce Young has played in the NFL. Bo Nix at 30, like that's great that Sean Payton took him, and he added his boy Troy Franklin, and you still have Courtland Sutton. You got a decent enough offensive line. I mean, like if Sean Payton likes him, I tend to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But this is a guy who's like he hadn't played in the NFL. You have no idea what he's going to look like. He's a 12th overall pick. There's a ton of pressure on him. He's not going to a great team. To put him at 30, I think it's just always good business to put the rookies at the bottom. I mean, look, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams probably going to be awesome. He was great in college. But you know what? I've seen Anthony Richardson play professional football. And he looked pretty good. He ran the ball well. He threw the ball well. Until somebody's played at the NFL level, I just have a hard time putting them above another quarterback like Anthony Richardson, because we're talking about second-year guys. Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, even Will Levis have put tape out there. So for me, that's kind of a sticky point where it's like, all right, I would put Daniel Jones.
You would have created a rookie tier, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I just have a rookie tier at the bottom. It's just easier to get out of it. You wouldn't want to rank, the rookies. I don't think you would. I mean, you're talking about a snapshot right now. You just don't know if Caleb Williams is going to be better than Jacoby Brissett in 2024.
I just feel sorry for Cody because he's going to get blocked by the entire Carr family for having Derek so low. Sorry, Cody.
Yeah. Welcome to the party, pal. I think like. I'm not saying I would put Jaden Daniels below Gardner Minshew or that I expect Jaden Daniels to be worse than Gardner Minshew this year. It's just that, I think you toss Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett and Derek Carr in this tier of guys where it's like starting for now, that would be the tier I would call them, with and not that Derek Carr is really going anywhere. I think he's just a 11th year veteran. That's where he would go. Whereas like I would put Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Daniel Jones, and Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson in the same tier, and I would call it something to prove. Because Deshaun Watson ain't gonna be out of a job because his contract's guaranteed, but Russell Wilson could get cut before the season. Baker Mayfield ain't going anywhere. I just think Baker. I'm taking Baker 100 times out of 100 over Russell Wilson for the 2024 season, or if you need me to win a game tomorrow.
Let me ask you this, Brinson, because he's not on the list. Take out Russell Wilson, put Justin Fields in. Where is he?
Ooh,
is he in that? Is he 17? Is he in that Will Levis, Bryce Young, Daniel Jones, show me something type of?
Yeah, I think Fields or Will. You can do Fields / Wilson if you wanted, because I think they. I would take Fields' upside because we've seen Russ for a long time. He's older. There's no chance you're going to get, 2017 Russell Wilson back. I don't think that ship has sailed. But Fields has the upside. I mean, we've seen the way that he plays. If you got him with if you toss Justin Fields on the Broncos, if Sean Payton traded for it, his hype would be outrageous right now. Justin Fields MVP odds are 65-1. This time last year, he was like 28-1. I think if you put him on the Broncos, people would be like, "Oh, Sean Payton loves Justin Fields. This guy's got a real chance," And so, yeah, I'm going Fields above Deshaun Watson as well. I think they'd be in that same tier though.
Yeah, I just think that it's tough because he's got to pick somebody. I think I think that Fields has a legitimate shot to completely end Russell Wilson as we know it as a starter. Like, I think it's very possible that we get to week 1 and it's Justin Fields starting over Russell Wilson, because we're going to see in camp that Russell Wilson is a name and maybe is not the same talent of quarterback that we remember him.
I also think, Breech, that you could make a very good case that Kyler Murray should be much higher. I mean, we sort of touched on that, but I mean, I'm taking Kyler over Deshaun Watson every day of the week at this point of their careers. I'm taking Kyler over Geno. I'm taking Kyler over Russ for sure. I'm probably taking Kyler over Baker, former back-to-back number 1 overall picks. Just you add Marvin Harrison. We saw how, I think Breech pointed out, but we saw how they played down the stretch last year. Kyler, when I put Kyler in that tier of who the hell knows, it wasn't Kyler is the 17th best quarter, or Kyler's the 20th best quarterback in the NFL. It was, we don't know if this guy's even going to play this year because the Cardinals might tank. They brought him back. He played well. I think they got a little something there. I mean, I think they're. What if their odds are to make the playoffs? Their win total? Are their win totals out? I hate that we have these win totals out before the schedule's out. It's kind of ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying earlier about Kyler, is that I would have him at the top of this tier of the 17 through 32 list. I'm not sure you put him up in the 11 through 16 guys when you look at who's in that tier. But look, Kyler Murray did look solid, and that's what I was saying about I think the Cardinals can be sneaky good. They went 4-13 last season. Maybe they get up to 8 wins, 8-9, maybe even 9-8. I could see them doing that just because if you have Murray, now you give him this great weapon, or should be potentially a great weapon, in Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, we don't know for sure because he's a rookie. But you look at, I mean, they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. They beat the Eagles in Philly. I mean, there were just some huge wins they had with Kyler Murray down the stretch where teams just kind of they basically played the role of spoiler, and they did that once Kyler Murray came back. So I think that this team can be decent. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but I think they can be okay with Kyler. So yeah, I definitely have them at like 17.
Like out of the quarterbacks, to piggyback off you, Breech, out of the quarterbacks that are the 17 to 32, I think Kyler and like Anthony Richardson have the best chance to move up into that 11 to 16 tier. I think that those two in particular have a ceiling that you're like, ooh, they could be really taking the league by storm in terms of their dual threat rushing ability.
And look, Cody's point on Anthony Richardson is fair. Like he got hurt. I think he started 4 games or played in 4 games, and he got hurt in 3 of them. I mean, that's a major concern, especially with that offense that Shane Steichen wants to run. But Richardson is a guy who, if you said he's a top 10 quarterback on this list at the end of this season, I don't think that's that crazy given how well the Colts played last year. If he plays a full season, if he rushes for a bunch of touchdowns, just sort of the athletic weapon he is. And again, we're banking on, when we say top 10, like not everybody, we saw it last year, not everybody's going to end the season completely healthy, right? Aaron Rodgers, if he plays 17 games, he's probably a top 10 quarterback. Matthew Stafford plays 17 games, he's probably a top 10 quarterback. And so I just think it's not everybody can be a top 10 quarterback, but I think Richardson has a shot, and his upside is insane.
Yeah, I also think he's one of the, like, he definitely has a high upside, but man, like that week 1 game last year, he got beat up by Jacksonville. I think he got sacked 4 times, and he was just, he was in spots where it was almost like he couldn't process as fast as he wanted to, just because that's what it's like being a rookie in the NFL, where things are happening so fast. You're not used to that speed. And the whole thing is you start the whole season, you get used to it. Well, he didn't get that. So now you're almost back at square one. Yes, I don't know if I'd put Richardson up there with Kyler just yet. I mean, to me, he's almost one of the biggest unknown quantities outside of the rookie quarterbacks, where I don't know what to make him. He could be good next year. He could be bad, and neither would surprise me.
Who was it that you said, talking about, in the top 10 has the chance to go any which way, the most like variance?
Herbert.
Sully?
Herbert.
Yeah. I think Richardson has the most variance of any quarterback on this list.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make the case for Caleb Williams, or even Jaden Daniels, where the upside is so crazy and they're going to start from Jump Street, we believe. I mean, it does feel like maybe Drake May doesn't start week 1.
Yeah, just full disclosure, Cody asked me when he was constructing this list, what do you think is going to happen with New England? And I told him to put Jacoby Brissett. If he's picking between May and Brissett, I said go with Brissett, because I don't think that May is going to be the week 1 starter. Could be proven wrong. Obviously, we have a ton of time between now and then, but I think Brissett's here to start the year.
All right. Okay, that's the list. You can go to cbssports.com. We used to do custom URLs. Remember when people on the internet used to do custom URLs? It'd be like CBSSports.com/Benjamin QB ranks.
Those were like the tiny URL, so it wasn't the actual URL.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't like, yeah, that's right. Somebody should step up the game and do that for CBSSports.com. Either way, you go to CBSSports.com. I'm sure
our tech team does a wonderful job, despite what Brinson says.
I love our tech team. They're great. Go to CBSSports.com/NFL, and you can see we got a fancy little graphic. Editorial team crushed it. Post-draft NFL QB power rankings. You can go check it out right below it. Wow. Joel Corey with a Love's case to become highest paid player in the NFL. Hello. That's a hot take. God, tis the hot take season. Let's get it going. By the way, I'll have win totals schedule out next week. I'll be writing win totals starting the week after that. And we'll be back on Monday to take care of Sully's biggest question for every single NFC team. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Sully, for Breech, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.